Wealth, yoga, wine. Welcome to my podcast. I'm Valerie Hill. Wealth, mindset. You know, when people see the word wealth, all kinds of strange connotations come to their mind. I included wealth on this unique trio of topics because I have been studying with Mary Morrissey, Bryce Pritchett, and Bob Proctor. They are gurus of transformation. I've been studying with them for years. And of course, studying with them can lead to more assets in your bank. However, during the pandemic, I saw that so many people were really upset financially and challenged. I was one of those. Because the backstory to me becoming a podcaster is that I lost my 26-year career in the fine wine industry. It was decimated by COVID. Also, my French-themed bed and breakfast in Hyde Park was also decimated by COVID. You had to shut down for at least a year and a half. I'm doing something different today for the wealth segment. I was recently accepted to make a 5-minute presentation to a huge event in Orlando. It's the PodfestExpo. This is the first time I have ever done a professional presentation to thousands of people. It is pre-recorded. I had to teach myself Google Slides. I actually used Carnival Slides, which is really cool slides. And it is technical, but and these are some of the things that Bryce Pritchett and Mary Morrissey and Bob Proctor teach us, to do something every day that scares you. In order to bring really good things to yourself, you got to get out there and get your butt kicked occasionally. I don't think my butt's going to be kicked with this presentation, but I do want it to open doors for me. Lastly, when it comes to podcasting, I taught myself for a year during lockdown. I had already been thinking before the COVID struck us, the pandemic, I was already thinking that it was really time for me to change careers. I was pushing 65. I didn't want to drive 1,000 miles any longer. I was really getting burnt out with the wine industry. It's not that easy, folks. I had been looking for such a long time to look at something where I could work globally, but from my home in Portugal, which is going to happen in the future. And one of my mentors said, Valerie, what do you love? Well, I love Kundalini Yoga. I've been studying it for 26 years. I have vast knowledge of French wine. I love that. And I believe that the gurus with whom I study in transformation, I love their teachings. It helped me through the pandemic. And that's how wealth, yoga, wine became an entity. That's what's going to be on the wealth segment. Kundalini Yoga is, of course, something that helped me through the pandemic, and basically because all the classes became virtual. However, I had already been studying with Guru Jagat virtually because she lived in LA. Tara Prakash, I've studied with her in person. When I first moved to New York, it took me a few years to make it to the Kundalini world of intense yoga. Once I found Kundalini Yoga, I never turned back. I practiced it when I was traveling in France or Italy or Spain. I don't leave home without it, even if it's just for 3 minutes. I have mentioned before, when you combine Kundalini Yoga's virtual classes, combine it with Mary Morrissey's teachings or Bryce Pritchett or Bob Proctor, you have a really strong team that you can use with your mind in anything that is facing you. I am going through a tricky time preventing foreclosure in New York, because if you live in New York, you know how difficult it is to be a small homeowner with 2 or 3 rental properties. People literally didn't pay rent for months on end, and it's tricky for me to catch up. But I'm going to persevere, and I'm going to win all of these challenging opportunities, because I believe in Mary Morrissey's teachings and Bob Proctor. I believe in Kundalini Yoga because they talk about abundance and prosperity and how to get your mindset out of the netherworld and into the real world of being successful. That's why I'm including this podcast case study, because this is something that's part of my business plan, and I was thrilled to be accepted. I was also shocked in a good way. And lastly, wine. What I'm going to discuss, though, is not really wine. It's hard apple cider. We just call them hard ciders. In New York, it is a huge production. I can't imagine anything being south of the Mason-Dixon line. Therefore, I'm going to include in the podcast notes all the great hard apple ciders that are in New York. The one that you will probably find here in Florida or south of the Mason-Dixon line is going to be Angry Orchard, and it's delicious. I like hard apple ciders. I was really surprised. They're not sweet. They're more on the tangy side, and they are effervescent. So for those of you who don't want to drink beer, I'm not much of a beer girl. This is nice, and it's fun to put it in flutes. Therefore, if you know people, very low in alcohol. So therefore, if you know people who are, cutting off the juice, but still want to have something kind of fun and exciting around the holidays, it doesn't make them look like a teetotaler. The hard apple cider is just a great addition to something to drink during these fall months, although we still have summer weather in Gulfport, Florida. So in conclusion, I'm not a life coach. I'm not a consultant. I produce this podcast once a week to help people globally. And I'm including this time my case study that PodfestExpo in Orlando is going to present, which I'm thrilled about, and kind of pat myself on the back for you guys. And lastly, really, the virtual classes that I upload, they are classes that I study all the time, every morning. I also believe that this yoga is perfect for children because they are going through an extremely hard time. Oh my gosh, with all these people who are anti-vaxxers and anti-maskers. And this gives them a nice, safe way to practice how to be calm. Therefore, Kundalini Yoga is not just for adults. It's very powerful for kids, and it's easy to teach them. And it will bring some clarity and calmness to their world because they're having a tough time. Of course, lastly, we're not doing wine this time. We're talking about hard apple cider from New York specifically because that is the best place to find them. They are about $5 or $6, maybe $7 a can or a bottle. It depends on how it's being produced. But it's actually fascinating, and I'll do another podcast on how hard apple cider is produced, so you guys get a good idea of what kind of apple cider you want. Merci.